In today's Israel Matters, we confront a sobering wake-up call for America as a major pro-Israel summit in Dallas is cancelled over rising security concerns, raising an alarming question: is the US still a safe place for peaceful support of Israel? Then we'll hear from security expert Tim Miller unpacking the growing threat of anti-Semitism and challenging the silence of the Western Church. Plus, we respond to recent media narratives from Vice President J.D. Vance as he meets with Theo Von's confusion over who the true aggressors are. And Greta Thunberg has a sandwich moment. Is that a turkey sandwich or a pastrami sandwich? But her bizarre protest voyage seemed to be a selfie opportunity. Could that have actually not worked in her favor? And finally, we dive deep into the meaning of shomer, guardian, and what it truly means to be a watchman in these turbulent times. It's time to stand firm, speak truth, and not be silent. Stay with us on Israel Matters, where truth meets clarity. Welcome to Israel Matters. I'm your host, Stephen Briggs, and I'm so glad you're here. And we're going to start right out the gate with a wake-up call to America. As ambassadors for Christian Friends of Emunah Israel, an organization that supports Israel's neediest children, my wife and I were scheduled to attend the Israel Guys Summit in Dallas, Texas this week. Right now, we should be in Dallas, surrounded by hundreds of Christians and Jewish leaders peacefully gathering to proclaim together with moral clarity the right for the Jewish state to exist and her right to defend herself. But instead, we are still at home due to the sinister rise of anti-Semitism across the USA, which means there's good news that I get to record this episode for you. Well, when we first heard last week that the Israel Summit venue needed to be changed due to security risks involving the original venue, it was reminiscent of exactly what happened last year in Nashville. In 2024, the initial venue buckled to persistent threats from pro-Palestinian protests. Thankfully, this year and last year, local Christian leaders stepped in and generously offered their own suitable venues. So last Monday, we scrambled to change our hotel booking to be nearer the new venue, but never dreamt we would get the phone call we received 2 days later telling us the whole event was cancelled. And then last Wednesday morning, an organizer of the event called us on the phone to explain that the entire event had to be cancelled with 5 days' notice due to the inability of the police in Texas to guarantee the safety of the event. Here is a taste of the response from the media over the past few days since that announcement was made.
The whole Israel Summit cancellation thing, it's been making massive headlines all across American media and all over social media.
In other news, one of the largest pro-Israel events in the U.S. has been postponed indefinitely because of growing terror threats.
There was an event that David Friedman, the former Trump ambassador to Israel, was supposed to speak at over the course of the next few days. It was supposed to take place, apparently, in Texas. And American jihadists forced a shutdown of the event. We should probably stop importing those sorts of folks into the United States. That is the point that President Trump has quite correctly made.
One of the largest pro-Israel gatherings planned for 2025 has been indefinitely postponed after escalating terror threats from American jihadists left organizers without a viable venue just days before the event.
It appears that the pro-Hamas forces got their claws in.
The security levels became so high, the risk assessment and the analysis that was done as to the risk to the event was so high that there was a security level mandated that was impossible to work with.
They just had to shut down the event. They had to cancel it last minute because of threats from radical Islamic jihadists. That's the reality.
There is a group called the Israel Guys, and they are pro-Israel activists, and they decided to hold a major event that they wanted to have in Texas. It's been organized for some time now. They sold over 1,000 tickets for people to attend. And the summit was supposed to start tomorrow. The police and FBI told the organizers of the Israel Summit that they would need to spend an additional $600,000 for an advanced security protocol. And even then, they wouldn't be able to guarantee the safety of all of the attendees.
Major Christian conference scheduled to take place later this week in downtown Dallas was just canceled. And if you're a sane person, you might be thinking to yourself, why the heck would a Christian conference in the heart of Texas have to be canceled?
Trump 45's U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, just announced the Israel Summit in Dallas this weekend for Jewish and Christian supporters of Israel had to be canceled because of death threats from violent jihadis.
So you get a taste there of just how many news outlets were covering it, major news outlets as well. This is a significant day for America as a whole, and thankfully it was announced last night that they have been granted a venue to meet and do the conference again in the future. That venue has not yet been announced, but it is going ahead in Texas, and we certainly don't want anyone to get hurt at a pro-Israel gathering. But will this be the new norm? Will American police forces feel unable to protect Jewish or Israel-related events, saying it is too costly and too dangerous to do that? This is an alarming precedent to set. Would the venues or police have given the same response to a different group asking for security support? Well, we are absolutely shocked and appalled that an Israel event would need to be cancelled in the US in 2025. First, the Nashville hotel that cancelled the event contract in 2024, and now this in Dallas. Both cities would argue that they're the buckle of the Bible Belt here in the USA, but instead of standing securely on the word of God when pressure came, both seemed to buckle to pro-Palestinian, anti-Semitic pressure. Interesting, right? This is a serious wake-up call. As Christian friends of Israel living in the West, we urgently need to stand up, speak out, and not bow to this tidal wave of anti-Semitism. America must remain a free and safe space for Jewish communities and supporters of Israel to peacefully assemble, a right that the U.S. Constitution and the American people must uphold and protect. Reminded of Isaiah 62 verse 1, for Zion's sake I will not keep silent, for Jerusalem's sake I will not remain quiet until her vindication shines out like the dawn, her salvation like a blazing torch. That's Isaiah 62 verse 1. To the Jewish people and the nation of Israel, we are standing with you as your Christian friends. You are not alone. I want to play for you, friends, a recording of the Israel Summit's head of security speaking about the situation at hand. His name is Tim Miller. He was in the Marines and law enforcement and a retired security serviceman and runs his own international security firm. Now, he is a Christian and he has some urgent calls to action for us all.
When I stepped in, we were looking at a venue in downtown Dallas, not abnormal, 700 people. So we went through all the security protocols, and it was and we know now it was evil, began to unveil itself. We began to get threat reporting. We began to get contacted by different organizations. And to echo, Luke, what you said, this in no way is indicative of law enforcement or Homeland Security or the federal agencies' lack of desire to make this work. Everybody was working very diligently to pull the resources together. But everybody on the call needs to remember that there were two exceptionally hideous acts of violence against Jews within 2 weeks of this event, the couple murdered in Washington. And then we saw the horror of Boulder. And I never thought in my lifetime I would see a Holocaust survivor burned in Boulder, Colorado, an American city. And what's even more tragic to me, guys, is we didn't see an outright outrage amongst the American people. We saw many step forward and decry it, but we didn't see that outrage. And so as we begin to progress in downtown Dallas, we begin to realize, hey, this is not looking good, more reporting. And let me pause here for a second and remind all of us that terrorism We tend to think of it as the act of terrorism. But remember, the threat of terrorism is equally as destructive. And in this case, there were threats. They were quantified threats. We had some very committed people looking at it. We knew it was a large-scale organization that was sponsoring it. And so, quite frankly, as the security costs to secure an event began to rise, we all said, wait, are we going to be able to afford that? Everybody in the local and state organizations were trying to get grant money to support the security costs. But at the end of the day, it was decided that the costs were implausible for Hayuvel, or really, if you think about it, for any organization wanting to host an event that should be relatively normal. And by the way, for your viewers, when it was first just viewed as a normal event, there was a commitment of under 10 police officers for it. It quickly exponentially increased to all kinds of specialized teams, similar to what we would see in a full-scale security operation. So then we moved venue. We went out into the country. And then we realized shortly after that and let's not be fooled, these folks are incredibly gifted at tracking. They're very technically savvy, and they like to cause fear and intimidation, and that's what they did again. Now, I will tell you with certainty that we were prepared.
And I want to play a second clip from him. There are some very pertinent points that he makes, of course. So the whole address, you'll be able to see if you just go down and look into the show notes below, and that'll give you more information about the whole presentation that he gave just on the announcement of the summit being cancelled and, well, postponed now, but originally cancelled.
I realize, the Lord is calling all of us to stand. If you're an American on this call and you love your freedom, you better stand, because what we're seeing is a fundamental attack against our constitutional rights to free speech, free assembly, and the free practice of our religion. And we watched in Germany, it's been quoted many times, but we watched in Germany as the German people chose not to stand up. They chose to allow it just to get a little worse, just like the frog in the boiling water. And I just want to encourage everybody on this call. It's funny, as a Marine, I always kind of believe that fighting for the freedom of our country is worth dying for. And as a police officer and as a Secret Service agent, you realize, wow, there are certain things protecting the life of the free world, or the leader of the free world, is important. And so let me encourage you and everyone on this call, where are you called to stand? Because I will tell you this, as intimidating and fear-mongering as these folks are, if this nation rises up in righteousness and says, nope, that's not going to happen, we are not going to let terrorists tell us what we can do in our own country. Now, I realize for many that they're going to, I've been getting some labels of late, and not a bad thing. But I would encourage you that talking about it is good, praying about it is better, and doing something about it in concert with the first two is the win.
Just like the frog in the boiling water, the need to stand up in this day is ever more present and increasing as we look at what is going on globally in the free world. And if this is happening in the free world, you can believe that things are going on in the not so free world that haven't even made it to where we are. But friends, let's cast our fear onto the Lord in this important moment in world history. Let's ask the Lord how he wants each one of us to do and serve in these days. What the enemy meant for evil, God will work for good. Instead of falling prey to ungodly fear and intimidation, I pray that this will be a wake-up call to the Western Church, that we can no longer be complacent or silent. I do believe, friends, that the same spirit that animates anti-Semitism is also the spirit of the Antichrist. The hatred and anti-God attitude that is anti-Semitism doesn't stop with the Jewish people. It may start with them, but I promise those calling for jihad also hate Bible-believing Christians. There's a moment in history like this that one can recall that is increasingly similar to where we stand today. And it does remind me of Pastor Martin Niemöller's poem, which was entitled, and some of you may be familiar with this, First They Came. Niemöller was a pastor in Germany under the Nazi regime. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. How reminiscent, how true is that of the reality of the importance of speaking up in today's society? And as we reflect on this, if you want to see the full statements made by Tim Miller, we'll ensure that those are in the show notes below. In other news, Israel is seemingly arming another militant group in Gaza. Who are they? And is this a smart move? Well, Yasser Abu Shabab is one who is engaging in confrontation within Gaza towards Hamas. Interesting turn of events. There have been some accusations that Israel is providing the weaponry that is there. We have to just kind of have our finger on the pulse. More will unfold in that regard as we move forward. And of course, we have seen the accusations of the IDF firing on people collecting aid. That, of course, has been debunked on a number of levels. They have fired warning shots, but it has actually been, there's footage of Hamas firing on their own people that you can see. And in other news, well, J.D. Vance took a plane flight to meet with an individual that we spoke about in the last episode of Israel Matters, talking to Theo Von. And Theo Von has a large following on TikTok. He is correct in that there is a genocide or an attempted genocide, one that was indeed live streamed by the murderous aggressors, but he has the character switched. I really do appreciate J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance flew down, as far as I'm aware, just to be on with Theo Von to talk about a whole number of issues. But one of the issues he raised was the classification and clarification of what is a genocide, and to debunk and rebuke the accusation that Theo Von stated that Israel is carrying out a genocide.
It's the sickest thing I think it's ever been televised, basically, if you consider watching something on your phone being televised. Sad, man. It feels like a massacre, and it feels like, I've called it a genocide. Other people have different thoughts about it, and that's fine, right? And I don't need anybody to share the same thoughts, or you too. But I think where it gets scary is that we give, we're complicit in it because we help fund like military stuff. And that's where, as like a regular guy, you're like, well, I'm paying these taxes and they're going towards this, like, but you can't do anything, like you can talk, but it's like, you can't. I don't understand how it becomes like tough for people. Like sometimes it feels like we look out for the interests of Israel before we look out for the interests of America.
So let me say a couple things. So number one, like, I think you're a great dude, so we don't always have to agree on everything. Do I think do I think it's a genocide? No. And here's the reason why I don't think it's a genocide, because I don't think that the Israelis are purposely trying to go in and murder every Palestinian. I don't think that's what they're doing. I think they got hit hard, and I think they're trying to sort of destroy this terrorist organization, and war is hell, and that is true. I also think it's true, man. I mean, I've seen people on my side of the political aisle. I'm a Republican, you know that, but your audience may not, who will see these videos of these innocent Palestinian kids and say, oh, well, they had it coming to them. No. Like if you have a soul, your heart should break when you see a little kid who's suffering, which is why we have the policy that we have, which is we're trying to eliminate the conflict, eliminate the source of the conflict, so that we can actually bring some peace and some humanitarian assistance into people.
And so we have Theo Von goes on to say, following on from that clip, that sometimes it feels like America cares more about Israel's interests than that of America's interests. To this, I would say, Theo, that the war Israel is fighting against radical Islam is on behalf of America and all civilized people. We have the choice of supporting Israel to fight it or fighting it more directly ourselves, but this problem is not going away on its own. To support Israel's interests is to support America's interests. That is, if America is still interested in freedom, human rights, democracy, and biblical values. Noah Tishby has also weighed into this, and it's worth seeing her comments on that as well. If we really do love the Palestinian people, then we need to be advocating for their full and complete release from Hamas. In other news, Israel media has just claimed that Trump wants Netanyahu to end the war with Hamas pre the completion of what needs to happen with regard to removal of Hamas for the freedom of those that live there. The aid is being ramped up and is getting to the people that need it, but there have been aid shipments that have been taken by Hamas under threat of gunfire and things. So that some of the aid that is getting in is still continuing to be stolen. Well, on a related topic, friends of Western influencers who have the whole plot to the current war mixed up, we have watched another element of the theater of the absurd with Greta Thunberg, our Swedish climate activist, made it into Israeli waters in an annoying display of theatrical activism, if I can say it like that. It was really more about wanting publicity for themselves than anything else. This was the most humorous photo of the week. Greta accepted a sandwich from the Israelis, and in the biggest turn-up of events is the fact that somebody has finally managed to make Greta Thunberg, the Goblin of Doom, smile. And who would it happen to be? Well, Israeli. An Israeli soldier. Of all people, Greta Thunberg has a smile on her face with a frog hat on, which is an interesting choice of attire. Well, she looks rather pleased about the fact that she is being granted a Zionist sandwich from the IDF. And even though I thought it was a big no-no in the BDS movement to eat products from Israel, appears that she and all of those that were traveling with her took these sandwiches. Also surprising, as I thought Greta had adopted a vegan diet in connection to her climate activism. Well, according to the J-Post, apparently the sight of these sandwich packets brought a lot of nostalgia to Israelis who have served in the IDF and seen this sandwich brand before. The wider media has mistakenly described Greta's sandwich as turkey, but the IDF confirmed that it was a pastrami, pickles, and mayo mustard sandwich on challah bread, which I think we can all agree sounds delicious and worth Greta breaking her self-inflicted BDS and vegan rules for. Shortly before this smiling photo, Greta released a video calmly saying that she was being kidnapped by Israel. This was a particularly tone-deaf accusation on her part. Let us contrast her gentle interception versus the real and very brutal kidnapping of Israeli hostages. I'm going to show you just the contrast again. You'll see that lovely smiling face of Greta Thunberg as she was kidnapped with the following photos that show what it looked like really for those that were kidnapped. These is images from Hamas themselves of 4 of the female hostages. This one shows the Israeli soldiers that were being kidnapped from their base down near Gaza. And in the third one, we of course see a hostage being bundled into the back of the car with her hands behind her back. Just a few images, and if you want to see more, you can obviously search online to see those. But there is a difference here. Greta, this is what really being kidnapped looks like. These innocent women are covered in blood, not knowing if they will ever see their families again. They've seen atrocities happen before their eyes that you would not even dare to watch a recording of from a safe, air-conditioned room. I hope the reason you stopped watching the film is because you felt so guilty for wrongly accusing Israel of being the aggressor. And just to give a context to that, the footage that Greta was being asked to watch is not some staged production that Israel invented. It is footage filmed by Hamas themselves because they were so delighted to be raping, murdering, beheading, burning, torturing, and kidnapping. Greta, please do yourself a favor and go back to school. If someone is not willing to listen and learn the facts, they should not and would not pretend to be a leader. I think Israel handled this situation with Greta very well. They met the hatred and lies with a calm, generous spirit and a pastrami sandwich on challah bread. If only Greta had watched more of the film showing the atrocities, it may just have given her the education that she needs before she opens her mouth concerning what is going on in the Middle East. She looked quite serious on her deportation flight back to Sweden. Greta, I hope you will take the time to learn what has really been happening in Israel and Gaza. And just as an aside, she was sitting on a plane. That doesn't do much for her carbon footprint. There's a scripture that is relevant to this, and indeed some of those that were on that flotilla have refused to be deported at this current moment in time. I hope that all of them will have the maturity to actually watch the video of what Hamas carried out on October 7th. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Isaiah 5:20. I hate that Israel had to waste any of their valuable time dealing with Greta and her friends' staged nonsense. Israel needs to be able to focus on their job of actually fighting the real terrorists. They have enough active war fronts in Gaza and Syria and Lebanon and Yemen and Iran that they should not have to give too much effort to fighting the public relations battle. I think a powerful way that Christians can support Israel at this time is to help fight for truth in the media battle. Share and post content like this that seeks to look at the facts that counter the anti-Israel propaganda that abounds online with the truth. But if you're wondering what your role is and what you can play in all of this, be a guardian of Israel in prayer and with your own voice and sphere of influence. Starting at your own kitchen table, talking to your family and friends about the lies and anti-Semitism that is all around us. Well, I mentioned that word guardian, watchman of Israel. Is in the Hebrew, this is a very special word. It's actually the word shomer, and it's found as a powerful title for God in a number of different places, but the one I want to start off by looking at is Psalm 121. The guardian of Israel, Shomer Yisrael. Psalm 121, verse 3 through 8. It says, He will not let your foot slip. He who watches Shema over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who is the guardian, Shomer, of Israel, will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches Shema over you. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your going. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. Shema is the Hebrew verb meaning to keep watch, preserve, or guard. The active participle form of this verb is shomer, meaning one who keeps or watches over, a watchman or a guardian. Shomer is also the term used today for a security guard who guards the entrance to a village or those checking bags outside Israeli shops and restaurants. And a person who keeps the Sabbath or keeps kosher, he is labeled Shomer Shabbat or Shomer Kashrut. A question you might have is, if God watches over Israel, seeing all that happens to her, then why doesn't he always deal with evil quickly? Perhaps 2 Peter 3, verse 8 to 13, can shed some light onto God's perspective on timing. But do not forget this one thing, dear friends. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, he is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. You ought to live holy and godly lives as you look forward to the day of God and speed its coming. That day will bring about the destruction of the heavens by fire. But in keeping with his promise, we are looking forward to a new heaven and a new earth where righteousness dwells. Someday, all wars will cease, and the Messiah will reign in shalom, in peace, as king in Jerusalem. His redemption plan has already been set in motion. The existence of evil does not negate the goodness of God. We can see God's hand of restraint holding evil back in both miraculous ways and through the divine order he put into place. May we be ready and available to do our part to stand firmly for God and his purposes for Israel and the nations. The atrocities committed by Hamas are crimes against humanity and an affront to the Creator God. The Lord shall have the final say. He will bring justice and will always keep his promises. The Lord guards, watches, keeps over all those who love him, but he destroys all the wicked. That word found there in the Lord guards, keeps, watches over is shomer in Psalm 145, verse 20. For as advanced as we human beings can pridefully think we are, our lives are actually so fragile. We are completely dependent on the Lord for every breath and every function of our bodies. Is God still the shomer, the guardian of Israel? Yes. The word of the Lord stands forever. God guards over his people in countless ways every day that we are rarely aware to be grateful for. We will never know this side of eternity all that the Lord has quietly done to preserve Israel as a nation. Why did the Lord not stop all acts of terror and brutality? I do not dare to give a simple answer. I mourn with those who mourn and ask the Lord to give his comfort as only he can. It is clear now from intelligence reports that Satan intended to do much more harm on October 7th than what God allowed him to do. Hamas was supposed to wait until Hezbollah was also ready to attack, but they acted on their own that dark day, which saved countless lives in the north of Israel. God's hand of protection was and is upon his land. God is watching as a shomer. He sees and will hold everyone accountable for their actions. He also calls us as believers to be guardians and watchmen for Israel. I have posted watchmen, the plural of shomer, on your walls, Jerusalem. They will never be silent day or night. You who call on the Lord, give yourselves no rest, and give him no rest, till he establishes Jerusalem and makes her the praise of the earth. This is important. Will you take up this biblical role? May we heed the call of Jesus to be found faithful, vigilant, and prayerful. In Matthew 26, verse 41, it says for us to watch and pray. And just focusing on that Isaiah 62 passage, I want to read a few other aspects of it, because this is really the heartbeat of what we've been sharing today. For Zion's sake will I not hold my peace, and for Jerusalem's sake I will not rest until her righteousness goes forth as brightness, and her salvation as a lamp that burns. And the nations shall see your righteousness, and all kings your glory, and you shall be called by a new name, which the mouth of the Lord shall name. You shall also be a crown of beauty in the hand of the Lord, and a royal diadem in the hand of your God. You shall no more be termed forsaken, neither shall your land any more be termed desolate. But you shall be called Hephzibah, and your land Beulah, for the Lord delights in you. And your land shall be married, for as a young man marries a virgin, so shall your sons marry you. And as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall your God rejoice over you. And then that verse we just read, I have set watchmen upon your walls, O Jerusalem. They shall never hold their peace, day or night. You that are the Lord's remembrances, take no rest, and give him no rest, till he establishes and makes Jerusalem a praise in the earth. That verse there, which says, you who are the Lord's remembrances, is used in modern day Hebrew as the word for personal assistant or secretary. You who are the Lord's secretary, you who are the Lord's assistant, you who are the Lord's PA, give him no rest until he establishes, until he makes Jerusalem a praise in the earth. How is your job doing as being a PA of God? When did you last remind him of his appointments that he has not yet fulfilled in his word? When did you last read his schedule, read his calendar, read his diary for those in England? When did you last take hold of what he has planned for the future? And when did you last remind him that he has appointments yet to fulfill? Because that is one of the roles that we have as children of the Most High. You who are the Lord's remembrances. And specifically, he tells us to remind God of what he has promised to do with Jerusalem, that he will make it a praise in the earth. May that be an encouragement to you to be involved in intercession. There's another verse found in 1 Timothy 2, verse 1 to 4, and that talks about our responsibility in light of this. 1 Timothy 2, 1 to 4. Gives us an instruction again of what we're to be involved in. I exhort, therefore, first of all, that supplications, prayers, intercessions, thanksgivings be made for all men, for kings and all that are in high place, that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and gravity. This is good and acceptable in the sight of God our Saviour, who would have all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. Here we have a clarion call that we are to be involved in supplication, prayer, intercessions, and thanksgiving, to be made for all men, for kings and all that are in high place. So those that are in authority, those that are in leadership. Why? That we might lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and gravity. And understanding that this is an acceptable role and responsibility, because he desires all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. This is Israel Matters. Thank you once again for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell on YouTube, as you can keep in touch with these updates that take place weekly. If you want to find out more about all that is going on, that is the best place to get in touch with us. You can also follow us on X and on all other social media platforms. And we're now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you prefer to engage with your content through your ears and not your eyes, then please feel free to go and subscribe there. It encourages us, and may God bless you. May his peace rest upon you. May he be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance upon you as you walk with him and are faithful in all that he has called you to do. This is Israel Matters.